It's over-opinionated. Josh Cott.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Over-opinionated. Boy, do we got a lot to talk about. The Republican Party just had their debate for president, their first one, hosted by Fox News and the social media video revenue called Rumble, a YouTube offshoot, mostly for conservatives. And everyone showed up to the debate with the exception of the former president, Donald Trump, who had an interview, a pre-recorded interview on Twitter with Tucker Carlson. So it's extremely interesting debate, a lot of hot takes. Without Trump being in the debate, how does it go is actually a very good, informative debate, and no one really came out a loser. Everyone walked away from the debate the way they wanted to, including Donald Trump. Also, in other news, Donald Trump was arrested today in the state of Georgia. He was released on bail, and we'll get more to that. But him, Mark Meadows, and Rudy Giuliani was all arrested in Georgia today on 13 felony accounts. But let's focus on the debate. The biggest guy on the stage that dominated the landscape when it came to body language and when it came to enthusiasm was definitely Vivek Ramaswamy, the newcomer, the 37-year-old entrepreneur. Definitely left his mark. He picked fights with everyone, and everyone picked fights with him, and he did what he was going to do. Now, Vivek knows he's not going to become president unless something awful, God forbid, happens to Donald Trump. He's running as Trump Jr. Vivek is running for vice president. And right now, he might have a good shot at it if things keep up with Trump. Trump really likes Vivek. He's Trump's cheerleader. He hardly ever talks bad about the president or criticizes the president. He was the first one to defend the president, and they did this question. They asked if Trump is convicted of charges and he is the nominee, will you still support him? He shot his hand up so fast. And all the other candidates took a little bit of time, and everybody but two candidates raised their hand. H.L. Huston and Chris Christie. Chris Christie went on the Trump attack for tonight. He got a lot of boos, and he kept going. Christie, I don't know exactly what he's going for. He's definitely going for the never Trump left-wing side of the Republican Party. And when I say the left-wing side of the Republican Party, I don't mean they're far leftist, but they're more on the left of the Republican Party. And everyone had a branch of the Republican Party that they are more appealing to. Nikki Haley is more appealing to more of a traditional conservative and extreme war hawk version of the Republican Party, and a little bit of establishment feel. Actually, a lot of an establishment feel from Nikki Haley. Vivek Ramaswamy is like the Trump adjacent or Trump light. People that like Donald Trump but maybe want another option, or they're looking for a second pick. You have the more classical conservatives with a mix of the Trump light that likes Ron DeSantis, and then you have all over the spectrum. You have the more left-leaning Republicans like H.L. Huston and Chris Christie, which I'm not saying Chris Christie's a big lefty at all. but he's running in the never Trump lane. And Chris Christie is actually polling pretty well in New Jersey. He's actually in second with 14%. But the whole question is, can any of these candidates take down Donald Trump when he's sitting at over 50% in the national polls? And I don't have an answer to that. If Trump gets convicted or if America gets tired of him getting indicted and arrested with so many charges, maybe Republicans take a second look. But it's yet to be seen. There's a lot of tension in the debate. Vivek had a lot of fights. He had a fight with Chris Christie. He had a fight with Nikki Haley. He had a fight with several fights with Mike Pence. And let's just get into some of the questions. And I'll be honest with you, there's two people on that debate stage that did not need to be there. H.A. Hutchinson did not need to be there. And Doug Bourbon didn't need to be there either. And let's go on. I'm going to look at some debate questions and how they were handled. You know, this is a very pro-life centered podcast, so the question of abortion is definitely up there. I want to go through the candidates and see who did the best and who did the worst, and I'm just going to tell you my opinion on that. And listen, I'm not a single issue voter. I do look at all the other issues, but this is the issue that's most prevalent to me, and it should be all Christians when we have abortion that murders unborn babies every year in this country. The country that's supposed to be the land of the free, we're putting to death unborn babies, and we know we're doing it. So I'm going to look and see which candidate answered the question of life the best. And I understand sometimes you have to compromise being in a position of power and not always taking what you want, but taking what you can get. But there's a difference in compromising, because that's the only way you can get some baby saves, and giving up because you're too afraid you won't get elected in the general election. We have to fight for what's right. Here's a clip from some of the candidates. The first one will be Nikki Haley, and I'm just going to kind of let it play through a little bit.
Governor Haley, what do you say to your party and to your state, which today confirmed a 6-week abortion law as well, especially the impact on women suburban voters across this country?
Thank you, Martha. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children, so I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, we need to stop demonizing this issue. This is talking about the fact that unelected justices didn't need to decide something this personal, because it's personal for every woman and man. Now it's been put in the hands of the people. That's great. When it comes to a federal ban, let's be honest with the American people and say it will take 60 Senate votes. It will take a majority of the House. So in order to do that, let's find consensus. Can't we all agree that we should ban late-term abortions? Can't we all agree that we should encourage adoptions? Can't we all agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we all agree that contraception should be available? And can't we all agree that we are not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion? Let's treat this like a respectful issue that it is, and humanize the situation and stop demonizing this.
Okay, let's just commentate on some of what you said. And let's get to some of the points we agree on with this. Yes, let's encourage adoption. Okay, yes, let's say no late-term abortion. Let's try to agree with that. Yes to all that. Then she goes into, we're not going to give a woman the death penalty, and we're not going to put a woman in jail. There's no one on that debate stage that thinks that a woman should be put in jail for having an abortion. There's no one on that debate stage that thinks a woman should get the death penalty. That is a very few. They're called abolitionists. I love them. I think that they have a lot of good points, but I think they're wrong on that. Politically speaking, punishing a woman for getting an abortion is never going to win. But I'd also not bring that up if I'm Nikki Haley. Who is bringing this up that believes this politically on the debate stage? And then she says we have to have 60 Senate votes. Well, set aside the fact that we don't, we can just go 51 and do the nuclear option, okay? And I know she's talking about a filibuster too, but we could just say this is a single thing. We're going to do a nuclear option, okay? Even if that's true, even if it's true, we're going to have to pass it the old-fashioned hard way. Guess what? It's still a cause worth fighting for. And she's not even saying that we need a 15-week ban, which is pretty reasonable. She's not saying a 20-week ban, okay, which is pretty reasonable. She's not trying to pass anything. She's just saying let the whole states have it. And when the states have it, and I'm a states' rights guy most of the time, okay, but when the states have it, you can outlaw it in Texas, and they're going to be killing babies in New York. You can outlaw it in Florida, and they're going to be killing babies in California. So there has to be a national standard of life. Titus Folks, the pro-life activist and lobbyist that we had on the show earlier, always says this is not a states' rights issue, it's a human rights issue. And he's right, okay? We need to fight for life. I love states' rights. I think states' rights is a great thing, but this supersedes that, okay? This is about the life of a human being. And what happened when the South said this is a states' rights issue, the North definitely took offense to that, and they stopped that, okay? I'm not talking about the Civil War. I'm just talking about everything else in general, all right? So we're going to have to come to grapple with the terms are we going to fight for what's right, or are we going to fight to win elections, or maybe we can do both. But I'm going to continue.
Situation.
Vice President Pence, Governor DeSantis, you signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. One of your biggest financial backers said that you need to, quote, shift to get moderates or you will lose. What do you say to him and others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally?
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win. But second of all, look, you got to do what you think is right. I believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb, and then saw the sonograms of all 3 of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I know a lady in Florida named Penny. She survived multiple abortion attempts. She was left discarded in a pan. Fortunately, her grandmother saved her and brought her to a different hospital. We're better than what the Democrats are selling. We are not going to allow abortion all the way up till birth, and we will hold them accountable for their extremism.
But just to be clear,
Let's look at that comment. He did a really good job on that. He addressed, they said, how are you going to win? He said, well, look how we just won Florida, what is typically a purple state in a presidential election. He won it by 19 points. That's a landslide. And then he talks about his children and seeing their own heartbeat. And then he talks about an individual that survived an abortion. So he handled the question extremely well, better than what Nikki Haley did. He was honest. He's actually done something about abortion on that stage. A lot of them are just talking about doing something about it. And he's actively saving lives as governor, okay? So we need something like that. Ron gets an A+ for me on that answer. Very good, okay? But some people are going to say, how do we pass it at a federal level? Well, let's keep going. Let's see what a few more candidates have to say.
would you sign a 6-week ban federally?
I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas. I understand Iowa and New Hampshire are going to do different. But I will support the cause of life as governor and as president.
Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head.
Have a national.
Hold on, Senator. Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head.
Well, look, I'm not new to this cause. After I gave my life to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I opened up the book and I read Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And see, I set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life. And I knew from that moment on, the cause of life had to be my cause. And I've been a champion for life in the Congress, a champion for life as governor and as vice president. And to be honest with you, Nikki, you're my friend, but consensus is the opposite of leadership. When the Supreme Court returned this question to the American people, they didn't just send it to the states only. It's not a states-only issue, it's a moral issue. And I promise you, as President of the United States, the American people will have a champion for life in the Oval Office. Can't we have a minimum standard in every state in the nation that says when a baby is capable of feeling pain, an abortion cannot be allowed? A 15-week ban is an idea whose time has come. It's supported by 70% of the American people, but it's going to take unapologetic leadership that stands on principle and expresses compassion for women in crisis pregnancies. I'll do that as President of the United States.
He called my name, so I want to respond to that.
30 seconds.
So first of all, I will say it is in the hands of the people, and that's where it should be. But when you're talking about a federal ban, be honest with the American people. We haven't had 45 pro-life senators in over 100 years. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president could ban all those state laws. Don't make women feel like they have to decide on this issue when you know we don't have 60 Senate votes in the House.
70% of the American people support legislation
but
to
70%
ban
of
abortion
the
after a
Senate
baby is
does
capable
not.
of experiencing pain.
And that was a good exchange. Mike Pence has an A+ for me also on that. He's saying that he doesn't. It's not just a states' rights issue, but a moral issue. Yeah, and 70% of Americans, he's saying, support a 15-week ban. I don't know the statistics on that, but it is higher at 15 weeks. Nikki's saying 70% of the Senate doesn't. Well, then if you're the president, you fight for life. If 70% of Americans agree with something, you expose the bad senators. You don't roll over and say this is too hard. This is too of a hot button issue. We won't win suburban women. We're losing babies. We are killing them. And we're just going to let it go because we want to win an election? That's wrong, okay? The same thing happened with people on Twitter, election Twitter, what they were talking about when Roe v. Wade was overturned, that a lot of them were upset that we didn't win the midterms like we should had because of Roe v. Wade was gone. I'll sacrifice an election. I'll sacrifice 100 elections to get more pro-life laws passed and get more pro-life policies passed. Now you're going to say if you don't win elections, you can't make those policies. That's true, so we have to find a good way, a middle ground, okay? We have to fight for morality without rolling over and giving up like Nikki Haley's doing. If we did what Nikki Haley's doing completely, we'd be like the Conservative Party in Canada that is actually pro-choice. Now, she might not ever be pro-choice. I understand that. I'm not saying she is. Okay, I know she's personally pro-life and somewhat politically pro-life, but she has no backbone to stand on. And people that like her are just the neocons and the establishmentarian that want a candidate that checks all the checks boxes and can beat Joe Biden. Now, I want to beat Joe Biden too, but I don't want to beat Joe Biden with a cardboard cutout of a Republican that doesn't have principles to stand on. And I can't stand Nikki Haley. I'll be honest with you. I've told you this before. I cannot stand her. She is awful. If she wins, I'll vote for her. I'll hold my nose and I'll vote for her because she's still better than Joe Biden. But we can do a lot better than Nikki Haley. I want to keep playing this debate.
Leadership.
Hold on.
70% of the Senate
Governor
does not.
Bergman
You
here.
have to be honest with the American people.
We have to have a 15-week
All right,
limit.
let's get Governor Bergman for one minute here. But the Supreme Court did overturn Roe v. Wade, and the result of that decision was that it went back to the states. So that's where it is right now. So as I understand it, you are not in favor of a federal ban. What do you say about the states. There's about 5 of them, including New Jersey, I think a few others, that allow abortion up until the time of birth, though. If you were president, would you be able to abide that?
Well, first of all, I'm a pro-life governor of a very pro-life state. And this issue is, of course, very important. But I am on the record, and I stand behind that we should not have a federal abortion ban. We should not. And the reason why we shouldn't is very simple. It's the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. In the Constitution, which the states created the federal government, not the other way around, it says that there were certain duties allowed to the federal government delegated to them by the states. The rest are left to the states, or importantly, or to the people. We need to get back to freedom and liberty for the people in this country. And we can't have Republicans who fight for 50 years for this great cause
And win.
to return it back to the states, and then the next day they turn around and go, no, the feds should do that, because the feds are stepping into people's lives, they're stepping into people's businesses over and over. If we say that the feds should be in on this one, where do we stop? I say that we follow the Constitution, and this is returned to the states. This is where it should
But
be.
Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. Time out. You signed a 6-week ban. Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. So you're saying federally, it's all going to go to the states.
Yes, and what is going to work in New York will never work in North Dakota,
Okay.
and vice versa. That's
Governor
why 50
Asa
states.
Hutchinson
That's why
right here.
50 states.
This is too important of an issue that I.
Yeah, and that's crazy to me. Doug should not be on that debate stage. He's less than 1%, maybe 1%, okay, but he's awful. Like I said, believe in states' rights, but you're okay with saving babies in North Dakota. You love the babies in your state enough to save them, but you don't love the babies in California or New York enough to save them. You love your state's babies. You love your babies. You could care less about California and New York's babies. Asa Hutchinson made a little bit of a statement, but he sucks, so we're going to skip him and go to Tim Scott.
We cannot let states like California, New York, and Illinois have abortions on demand up until the day of birth. That is immoral. It is unethical. It is wrong. We must have a president of the United States who will advocate and fight for it. The 15-week limit. I am 100% pro-life conservative. I have 100% pro-life record. I got to tell you, though, we must fight for life. Our Declaration of Independence says our Creator gave us inalienable rights that include life. That is a list. That is an issue we must solve. We can't leave it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. We can't leave it to Illinois. We must solve that issue with a 15-week limit at a minimum.
Thank you,
Brent, I
Senator.
think we're all pro.
Senator Scott made a great comment there. We can't just leave it all to California and New York, because we know that they'll kill babies up to the moment of birth, which is so scary. He gets an A++. He had the best answer. Okay, Nikki Haley's answer, not great. At least Asa Hutchinson did want to protect some, but we skipped him because we didn't like him. He sucks. We should have skipped Doug, but I didn't. I apologize. He sucks. All those people, Nikki Haley, Doug, Asa was a little bit better. They were not great, okay? Mike Pence, great answer. Tim Scott, great answer. Ron DeSantis, great answer on the abortion question. And we're going to move on a little bit and talk about Ukraine and see the little spat between Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy. Also, I've practiced that word Ramaswamy a lot. I'm getting pretty good at pronouncing it, and it's a really weird name, so I'm kind of proud of myself. Let's move on. Before we get to the Vivek and Nikki Haley fight, I just want to read a tweet sent out by the former White House Secretary, Jan Psaki. No one supports abortion up until birth. This is such a lie. I'm old enough to remember when the former governor of Virginia said that in the case of a late-term abortion, if it's botched and the baby's born alive, that they'd keep the baby comfortable, then the mother and the doctor will have a discussion. He obviously meant to talk about terminating the child. So that was talking about infanticide. My former governor, Ralph Northam, which I'm so glad he's gone. Delegate Kathy Tran in Virginia supported a bill to legalize killing of abortion even when right before the moments of birth, right before the first toe or the first speck of hair left the birth canal, you could have an abortion, which in Virginia you can. And it's sad, but there are no abortion restrictions in the Commonwealth of Virginia yet. Hopefully there will be. And I'm old enough to remember when Hillary Clinton didn't support any restrictions on abortion. Our current president, which she worked for, Jan Psaki, who she used to work for, Joe Biden, doesn't offer any restrictions. So yeah, your party believes in abortion up to birth. You're covering face. You're making your party look better. She's a professional liar. Her whole career was lying as White House press secretary, and now she's got a cushy job at MSNBC. So, she didn't go away. She got a nice little job at MSNBC where she can continue to lie to the American public. And now she's just lying about abortion and killing unborn babies. Here's a question regarding Ukraine that started the Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy debacle.
Now we are moving on to other issues. The U.S. has committed nearly $77 billion in aid to the Ukraine war. The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would not support it. Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight. Right
would,
now, they're not doing
you
that,
would not support
and I think
more
we need to
funding?
do. And I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests of Americans first, secure our own border instead of somebody else's. And the reality is, this is also how we project strength by making America strong at home.
Thank you.
All right, we heard the names. Governor Christie first.
All right, look, I did go to Ukraine, and I went to Ukraine because I wanted to see for myself what Vladimir Putin's army was doing to the free Ukrainian people. And let me tell you, I want you all to look around this arena tonight and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out people's eyes, cut off their ears, and shot people in the back of the head, men, and then gone into those homes and raped the daughters and the wives who were left as widows and orphans. This is the Vladimir Putin. This is the Vladimir Putin who Donald Trump called brilliant and a genius. If we don't stand up against this type of autocratic killing in the world, we will be next.
You were mentioned.
Governor Haley, we'll come back.
Vice President Pence was mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do both, Vivek. We've done both. We've been the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there so our troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border, and frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out into Russia.
I want to just
So our
briefly
troops
address
aren't gonna have
Pence.
to make that
Vice
fight.
President Pence. I have a newsflash. The USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990.
Did I say
The real
USSR?
threat. You talked about the communists. And the real communists that we have to address
Do you
right
not
now
have any
is the...
idea what Vladimir Putin's aims
you
are?
already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir
30
Putin has
seconds.
been saying he wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere
You've made
of
your point,
influence.
Vice President.
Now, if you think
Pence,
I'm
you-
sorry if I insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer, and the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism.
Mr. Ramaswamy, 30 seconds.
Respond. The real threat we face today is communist China, and we are driving Russia further into China's arms. The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party is talking about it, and I am the only non-neocon on this stage. But keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear. Mr. Vice President.
Is to give Russia
Mr. Vice
everything
President.
they've got.
Mr. Vice President.
Give them a promise that Ukraine will never be in NATO, and then somehow
Mr. Vice President.
China will not think about taking Taiwan. We achieve peace through strength.
Mr. Vice President.
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay, here we go.
I think we need to reestablish some ground rules
When
here,
we
folks.
hear this.
Okay, let's take a pause at the madness. That's not getting to Nikki Haley. We will get to her shortly. Vivek made a lot of good points there. I love Mike Pence, I really do, and I'm not a full-on war hawk, and I'm not a full-on isolationist. I think Vladimir Putin is an absolute evil dictator, and I would love to get rid of him very soon. And I think Ukraine is just in wanting to claim all their country back. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, how does this benefit America? Okay, we're giving a lot of money and a lot of resources to Ukraine. We can't just say we're going to write you a blank check forever. Okay, there has to be an endpoint eventually, right? And I understand what a lot of people are saying is we shouldn't cede 1 inch of ground to Russia. Okay, but right now we're at a stalemate. Should we just keep giving them things for the next 100 or next 50 years? Some of the Ukraine purists would say, yes, we keep giving them things. Why? We're wasting our money, we're wasting our resources on a war that's going nowhere, and it's just stalemate. We have to say, this is ours. We got to sit down, Vladimir Luzinski, and we have to say, listen, we're going to help continue fund your army. We're going to keep giving you resources, but you have to sit down in the negotiating table, and you're not going to like everything you're going to get, because Russia's going to get some land. And when people say, well, Russia's evil, we got to stop them. Sometimes the evil guys win a little bit, okay? But I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But are we going to keep having more and more soldiers on both sides die? Are we going to keep funding an endless war? Vivek's right on that. We need to stop funding endless wars. We need to stop fighting endless wars. And we got to stop fighting wars and proxy wars that a lot of them we don't win. And, okay, and that might make some pro-military people mad. I love the military. I want to use the military, okay? But we don't need to get in every war. We also can't set every war out. Sometimes we have to take charge as leader of the free world. We're going to get back to the Ukraine questioning.
That means your time's done. So, Mr. Vice President, we appreciate your aggressiveness here. 30 seconds is 30 seconds. Mr. Ramaswamy, you were mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
So the reality is that today, Ukraine is not a priority for the United same people who took us into the Vietnam War. You cannot end it. You cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our own borders, protect the homeland.
All right.
That will be my top priority in foreign
And
policy.
we gave you
Protect
more
this
than the 30
homeland.
seconds in the rebut. So I do want to get to some other people because everybody, we respect everybody's time here. So, Governor Haley, you did not raise your hand, meaning that you would support more funding for the Ukraine war. You have said of Governor DeSantis that you didn't appreciate it when he initially called it a territorial dispute. Why?
First of all, the American president needs to have moral clarity. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug. So when you want to talk about what has been given to Ukraine, less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the U.S.
Pause. I want to pause that. There's a reason why she has to say per GDP, because we're giving a crap ton, more than anybody, more than Europe, more than anybody. Our taxpaying dollars are going to Ukraine, okay? That's why we have to force them to the negotiating table. Our 3% of the military is a whole lot more than anybody else's. We have the biggest military in the history of the world. That is a dishonest thing Nikki Haley is saying. Gosh, she's awful. She's just god awful. How can you look at her and say, I want her to be president? Let's continue.
But what's really important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics, and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said, once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American country.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. DeSantis, Governor
Nikki,
DeSantis,
I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
I'm not on
but
the
fact
boards
of the matter,
Lockheed and Raytheon, and
Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week,
You want
Nikki.
to go and defund Israel? You want to
Okay, let me address that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Go and give
I'm going to address each of those right now. This is the false lies of a professional politician. There you have it.
Your watch,
So
you
the
will
reality
make America less safe. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The
It
foreign
shows.
policy experience that you all have shows in the pointless wars we've gotten into. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is a friendship. And you know what friends do? Friends help each other stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles me is, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel
That is the
needs
answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay,
They
Governor
are the front
DeSantis,
line of defense
Governor
to us.
DeSantis, you were mentioned in the territorial dispute.
Okay, we're going to pause that. They both, as much as I hate Nikki Haley as a politician, okay, she came off pretty good there for the more traditional Republicans and the war hawk Republicans. But Vivek made so many good points, and he hit her hard too. Okay, so Vivek and Haley both came away with a W there with their own respected things. Okay, and Vivek's right. who's the foreign policy leaders that kept getting us into all these endless wars, like Iraq, like Afghanistan? And yeah, we had reason to go in Afghanistan, but we ended up losing because Joe Biden pulled out. So, and I want to address Nikki Haley's awful comment. She said, Israel does not need America. America needs Israel. She's trying her best to pander to the evangelical religious Christians. I'm an evangelical religious Christian. And guess what, Nikki Haley? America doesn't need Israel. Not one bit. We're the biggest dog on the block. Nobody messes with us. We have the biggest, baddest military in the history of the world. We have the biggest military budget in the history of the world. People don't mess around with the United States of America. Yeah, we have a crappy president. Yes, there's crappy things that have happened, okay? I agree with that. But guess what? And guess what? People don't mess with Canada, and people's not going to mess with Mexico either. And when I say mess with, someone's not going to invade us because they know all hell and fury will be leashed upon them. We do not need the modern day state of Israel, okay? We don't. Do I want allies? Do I want friends? Yes. But do we need Israel? Such a crappy, such a pandering comment to win over the evangelical Christians. I'm not falling for it. I love Israel. I love the modern day state of Israel. But we are the United States of America. We don't need nobody. We handle our own business. We won 2 world wars. We put a man on the moon. We do not need a small little state in the Middle East. Now you might say they're God's chosen people. And guess what? We can go into that. We can go into that biblically and say, let's look at this. But even if that's true, I'm not saying we shouldn't bless Israel. I'm not saying we shouldn't love Israel. But do we need Israel? Okay, is God going to curse us to the ground if we stop giving them foreign aid? I don't think so, okay? I don't think that that's biblical, okay? And I'll be honest with you, I don't think this might make some biblical Christians upset. I don't think the modern day Jews are God's chosen people anymore. They don't have salvation except the few that do, that are Christians, okay? We've been grafted in, and the foreigners have been thrown into fire, okay? Does God still love them? Yes, like all people. But the modern day church is spiritual Israel, not the ethnic Jews. We are the true seed of Abraham. Okay, they might be genetically linked to Abraham, but we are Abraham's spiritual children, and we can go into that later. And I know a lot of evangelicals and a lot of my brothers and sisters in Christ who I love would disagree with me, but when I read Paul's letters, I don't know how to take it any other way, okay? But, so, good gosh, Nikki Haley, just go back to South Carolina. But that was an interesting debate. Everyone did well, even Nikki Haley did well for her crowd, okay? And I just want to see what's going to happen with the indictments, with the charges. If Trump's our nominee, he's going to be in court most of the time instead of the campaign trail, and that's not a great look, guys. So, you know, we got a lot of time before Iowa and New Hampshire, and Trump's only pulling 45% at Iowa, and we got more than a year left, okay? Only 45% so far? That might sound like a lot, but he's the former president of the United States, so let's see what happens. Christie's doing good in New Jersey. And if Trump wins, I'll support him. Okay, he'll have my support. But let's just see what happens. I also want to talk about a music artist that has went viral the last couple of weeks, and I was going to mention it last episode, but I promised it wouldn't be a political episode at all. And his name's Oliver Anthony, and the song is called Men North of Richmond, and he is exploded all over the charts, all over Apple Music, all over Spotify. And I'm just going to read you some of the lyrics. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for BS pay, so I can sit here out and waste my life away, drag back home and drag my troubles away. It's a darn shame what the world's gonna do for people like me and people like you. I wish I could wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is. Living in the new world with an old soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all want to have total control. Want to know what you think. Want to know what you do. And they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end 'cause of the rich men north of Richmond. I wish politicians would look out for miners, and not just miners on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. But God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this darn country does is keep kicking them down. Lord, it's a darn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. I wish I could wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is. Living in the new world with an old soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows all they just want to have total control. Want to know what you think. Want to know what you do. Okay, so you get the point. It just repeats itself. And I want to go back. The reason this is resonating with so many people is because as so many people feel this exact same way. They work all day, they don't get paid enough, and then the government overtax them and they spend it on BS that they shouldn't. Okay, and this world says a few this song has a few cuss words in it, and that's I kind of edited it out, as you can tell. I didn't say the actual cuss words, and so when it comes to that, that's what we're trying to say is this is what the blue collar class is saying. We work all day in a hot factory, we get taxed, and our tax dollars go to crazy crap. Okay, the only thing I didn't love about the song, but the more I've listened to it, the more I've come to appreciate more what he's saying is when he's talking about the obese milking welfare. Well, I wish he would say the lazy instead of the obese, because you can be overweight and still not able to work. But he's not saying just fat people that have a hard time and can't work because they have a disability, some kind of physical disability, like they don't have a leg. He's talking about lazy people who do nothing and get tax benefits and food stamps, while everyday hardworking Americans are out of luck, is what he's saying. And while we're giving money to Ukraine, and Nikki Haley wants to continue giving money to Ukraine, we're working overtime hours for BS pay, and our dollar ain't crap. And these rich men north of Richmond, okay, so what's north of Richmond? He's talking about Fairfax. No, he's talking about Washington, D.C. Okay, these rich men north of Richmond are, all they want is total control. They want to know what you think, want to know what you do. They don't protect minors when they're getting transgender surgery. They don't protect minors from this and that, okay? But they'll look out for minors on an island somewhere. Ouch. Ouch, man. And there's some truth to that, okay? I'm not saying all the politicians in D.C. are bad. I've met a few of them that are good. But there are a lot of corrupt politicians, and some of them have D's behind their names, and some of them have R's behind their names. And yeah, this song is resonating with so many people because it's true. And his name is Oliver Anthony. Go follow his music. Go listen to it. He's turned down some offers because he just wants to sing his music. And there's some cuss words in it, but if listen, most people have listened to cuss words before. They're not bad words. They're not awful cuss words. And I'm just trying to censor it out, and I'm not saying that because, I try to have a decently good ethic on my podcast and not have a lot of cussing, and I try not to. In general, sometimes I might stub my toe and say a word I don't want to, but I try not to cuss in general, and just something that I personally try to do, and I fail at it sometimes. But definitely go check out this song. And listening back to myself read the song, I discovered I accidentally said the S word, and I apologize for that because I don't have the best way of adding it. I'm going to leave it in there, but just know it was a slip of the tongue. With that being said, I want to give you your Bible verse of the day. The Bible verse of the day comes from Revelation 3, chapter 20, using the New International Version. Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me. And that's the words of Jesus. If you hear the door, if you hear Jesus' voice and you let him in, he'll come and eat with you. He'll meet you where you are. He loves you. Just repent and accept him. That's all we got to do. Repent and accept him because he loves us. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. I was excited about the debates. Now let's go and let's see what else happens with the Trump indictments, the Trump charges, and maybe another Republican can start chipping away at Trump's lead. I hope so. If he wins the nomination, I'll support him, but I'm just kind of concerned. And I just want to say God bless you all. Jesus Christ is King. I hope y'all all had a great day. I hope you like this podcast. Please share. Please pray for it. Please keep listening. If you want to financially support, if you don't want to, you don't have to. If you don't have the money, I understand that money gets tight, especially under Joe Biden. But if you want to financially support, you can go to www.patreon.com/overopinionated679. The O in over is capitalized. Okay, so www.patreon.com/overopinionated679/.com. Okay, Jesus Christ is the King of Kings. God bless you all. Thank you so much.